Over 2 years ago, Lincoln brought back the Aviator nameplate after a 15-year hiatus. It was part of a resurgence for Lincoln to bring back well-established names and give U.S. consumers an entirely freshened lineup. I had a chance to drive the gas-powered Aviator multiple times. It was one of my favorite three-row luxury crossover SUVs. However, one vehicle that I haven't driven was the Aviator Grand Touring, which is Lincoln's terminology for their plug-in hybrid version. And with this model sandwiching an electric motor between the 3-liter twin-turbo V6 and the 10-speed automatic, we now have an Aviator that has nearly 500 horsepower and 630 pound-feet of torque, along with what Lincoln says allows you to go up to 21 miles on pure battery electric power. So if you guys have been looking for the ultimate American luxury three-row SUV, something that can go toe-to-toe with the best from AMG, from BMW's M, and from Audi's RS division, how does this new Aviator Grand Touring stack up? Stay tuned to find out. So some of you may disagree with my need to want to compare this car to something like a Mercedes-AMG GLE 63 or BMW X5M or an Audi RS Q8. However, Lincoln likes to build this car as the ultimate Aviator because it has more torque versus all of those vehicles, courtesy of that electric motor, even though it doesn't have quite as much horsepower. However, most consumers are probably going to compare this car to the Volvo XC90 T8. So let's start, of course, with under the hood, because this Aviator Grand Touring is one of the few plug-in hybrid models that you can find in this segment. Now, of course, under the hood, you're going to find the same 3-liter twin-turbocharged double overhead cam direct injection V6 that we find under the hood of the regular Aviator. However, what Lincoln has done here is they've sandwiched a permanent magnet AC electric motor between it and the 10-speed automatic transmission. They also modified the 10-speed transmission. The electric motor on itself delivers about 101 horsepower and 221 pound-feet of torque. When you add the outputs of the gas engine, which still produces 400 horsepower, Lincoln says you get 494 horsepower. So not exactly 500, but still about 94 more horsepower than what you're going to find in something like the Volvo. You also get a rather impressive 630 pound-feet of torque. That torque figure is one of the most impressive that you'll find in the segment. It all goes out through, again, that 10-speed automatic transmission, so you're not dealing with a CVT here like in some competitors. And Lincoln says with its 13.6 kilowatt-hour battery pack, this vehicle should travel about 21 miles on full battery power alone. So the range is pretty paltry, but this is about the same, if not a little more, than what you're going to get in the Volvo. Something like the BMW X5 xDrive 45e will do about 30 miles on all-electric range, which I haven't had a chance to drive that vehicle yet. Now, this is an Aviator, so it's built off of the Explorer's rear-drive architecture, which was just introduced, of course, back in 2020. And this vehicle, as it is equipped, will tow a maximum of about 5,600 pounds. That's a little bit less versus the gas-only Aviator, which will tow about 6,700 pounds. With this improved power and torque, you're going to, of course, get better performance. Lincoln says you should be able to do 0 to 60 in the 5-second-ish range. And because of all the electric motor componentry and the battery pack, this is considerably heavier. It weighs in at around 5,800 pounds, so about 700 to 800 pounds heavier. And in fuel economy, if you guys have to run this on the gas-only engine, Lincoln says it'll do roughly 23 mpg combined, 22 in the city and 25 on the highway. That's only a 3 mpg improvement over the gas-only version. Now, shutting the hood, let's take a look at the styling, because the Aviator styling has definitely aged well over the last couple of years. In fact, Lincoln just refreshed the Navigator, and it basically gave it the Aviator's front end. The only indication that this is the plug-in hybrid model when you're looking at it from the front fascia is when you stare at the Lincoln Star. You can see the Lincoln Star here in the grille has this kind of blue background behind it. That's how you can tell this is the plug-in hybrid. Some models will also give you the illuminated star. This one has it because it has the illumination package. You have this really nice looking kind of Bentley-esque design in the grille with the chrome inserts. It's definitely nice, but it's also not overwhelming like some brands tend to be, especially the American brands. The illumination package also includes these full illuminated LED daytime running lights, full LED headlights, which kind of do a signature dance when you approach the vehicle. You also have LED turn signals, and you have these LED fog lights. So the lighting on this car is definitely beautiful, especially at night. It really looks like a very expensive luxury SUV, which it better, because this car is definitely not cheap. Now, of course, being built on the Explorer's rear drive platform, you have a vehicle that is pretty much right-sized for something in this class. Its wheelbase is around 119.3 inches long. Its overall length is around 199.3 inches long. It has hasn't changed, of course. Even though this car is the plug-in hybrid, it's still the same length as the gas-only version. Now, this Black Label model is the top of the food chain in terms of the trims, and you get these standard 21-inch wheels wrapped in 275/45 width tires. You also have the Air Glide air suspension that this one comes with, which allows you to adjust the ride height based on your drive mode selections, although Lincoln doesn't allow you to kind of adjust the air suspension up and down independently. This is not something you're going to be taking off-roading anyways. Now, of course, here on the fenders, you can see it spells out Aviator, although it has a blue tint. That's how you're going to know it's a plug-in hybrid model. And you can see here's the charge port for the vehicle. It just comes with a standard J1772. There's no DC fast charging. Lincoln says when you use the supplied mobile charger on a level 1, it'll take about 12 hours to fully charge the battery overnight. On a level 2, it'll cut that time significantly down to about 3 to 4 hours. So much better on a level 2. That's what I have it on at my home. Definitely worth it if you guys plan to drive this thing to work and your commute is less than 20 miles. Now, of course, being a Lincoln Ford product, you do have their touchpad here where you can input a combination to get in and out of the vehicle. The door handles here also, they don't actually move. There's a little, kind of like a little button on the back of the handle that opens it up. And Lincoln also gives you the ability to use your phone as a key to get in and out of the vehicle. That is part of an upcharge that this Black Label comes standard with. You can see above me, or above the car, there's these really nicely integrated roof rails. The pano roof comes standard. And the Aviator definitely looks big from this angle here. You can definitely tell it has a very distinctive American look. It's still one of my favorite designed vehicles, although it and the Genesis GV80 are two of my favorites. The Lincoln definitely is the slightly bigger option versus the Genesis. Now, looking at the rear, you can see the taillights have that traditional full-length design. There's a Lincoln spelled out very boldly at the back. And there's no indication really that this is a plug-in hybrid from the rear. You can see it still has the same quad outlet exhaust system, although the exhaust is interesting because you can see this right here is actually the muffler. It points downward. This is a good way that Lincoln does this so this doesn't get quite as dirty and covered with soot, like especially if you look at some of the European competitors. Now, when you open up the trunk of this vehicle, obviously a power liftgate that's hands-free is going to come standard. And because the battery pack is well packaged in this vehicle, you don't have to worry about losing any space. With the third row seat up, Lincoln says you get around 18.1 cubic feet of space, which is pretty class competitive. They do offer some storage under here. You can see there's the charger for the charge port, or for the charger to charge the battery, of course. If you want to fold these seats down, just push this little button right here. These are power folding seats. When you fold down the third row, Lincoln says it expands it to about 41.3 cubic feet of space, which is pretty good. If you fold down the second row entirely, this one here is the 6-passenger model, you get around 77 cubic feet of space, which is about 10 cubic feet less than what you get in this car's main rival, the Volvo XC90. So let's go ahead and take a look at the interior of this Black Label Grand Touring version. First of all, here's the key fob. You can see it is very much a Ford key with just a Lincoln logo here. You do have remote start on the fob. You can see some of the buttons here are a little more chromy on the Lincoln Aviator, and you can also use your phone as a key if you guys have it set up. This particular one here, I don't have it set up because it's a press car. And to get into the vehicle, you can see there's a keypad here where you can adjust or set a combination if you own the car. If you want to lock it, there's a button here on the door panel here that locks the door. To unlock it, you just touch the back of the door handle here, and there's actually a button that you push. The door handle doesn't actually move. Now, this interior color combination is called Flight. How appropriate, because the exterior is called Flight Blue. This is, of course, the upgraded premium leather that you get on the Black Label. It also comes with these 30-way perfect position front seats, which they call them perfect position, but I have to say it takes some time to get the seat adjusted exactly how you'd like it to be. These seats are heated and cooled and massaging, and they also come with a 3-person memory on the driver's side. You can see the seat controls are over here on the door panels. These seats definitely are a little overwhelming, but once I got them comfortable and exactly set to my liking, I do find them to be pretty supportive. I just don't know if they're more comfortable than some of its competitors in this space, which has really, really nice seats. Now, getting inside, the Aviator has a very surprisingly low step-in height, actually. It feels like you're in an SUV, but it's not quite as a jump as you might find in some competitors. When I shut the door has a nice solid sounding thunk, or if you don't want to slam it, you can kind of just click it. It has a soft closed doors, which is what you expect in a vehicle that costs this much money. Now, the button to fire up the engine is right up here on the dash, which is in a good location. You can see when you start it up, no starter noise, because remember, this is electric. It starts up in electric only mode because it's a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid. But let's briefly talk about the interior. It is slightly different versus the gas-only version. This interior color combination looks good with the blue. You can see materials are high quality. You have real leather on this part of the dash. It's a faux leather, but it's got a soft touch plastic, injection molded plastic on that part over there. This kind of feels a little cheap, but it looks good. This right here is the same material on the door panel. It's not real stitching or real leather. This, however, is real. The 28-speaker THX audio system also sounds pretty good. I think it's one of the better ones that I've heard. It also has, again, your seat controls here on the door. The window controls here, they feel very similar to Ford, and as you can hear, my tester needs a little bit of a WD-40 or some kind of lubricant on the window tracks because it's squeaking pretty bad, but it might be an early pre-production model. The steering wheel, you can see, is a power tilt and telescoping design, which is nice. You have these interesting buttons here, which if you turn on the cruise control, you can see these buttons kind of magically appear there. They're dim when you don't have this cruise control on. The steering wheel itself is heated, which is what you expect. There's a button here to activate the voice commands, and some of the turn signal stalks and switchgear do feel a little bit more high quality. There are a lot of touches in this interior that doesn't feel like a Ford, but it also has a few things that also remind me of a Ford as well. The 10-inch infotainment system here, this is Sync 3. Sadly, so it doesn't include wireless Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. It also doesn't have over-the-air updates. I find that it's a little slow at times, so this could be improved. They also could increase the size of this screen, make it more of a widescreen design. There's space for it, obviously, here on the dash. When I put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there is your top-down 360 camera with pretty good graphics and resolution. Which is nice. The all-digital instrument panel here is pretty similar to the gas-only version. It also has a drive mode selector here, and this is where the differences come in. If you twist this over to the left, you can see there's your normal, there's your conserve, which is like eco, there's your excite, and then back to the right, you can see there's a slippery and deep snow conditions. So these 5 modes we already know, or is it 6? I'm sorry, 5 modes. I can't count today. If you keep going over past excite, there's a new mode here, Preserve EV and Pure EV. Pure EV, of course, will give you the most electric-only driving to basically take advantage of the battery pack. Preserve EV will turn the gas engine on. It'll try to recharge the battery or save your charge for when you want to use it later. Those are 2 additional drive modes that you get, of course, with the plug-in hybrid version. We'll try those out when we go into the test drive. And then, of course, coming over here, if you click this button here, there's a power flow meter here, which when you have the vehicle into drive or reverse or whatnot, it gives you kind of a representation of what's going on with this car, what's going on with like how much power you're using, which part you're using. But right now you can see it's not coming on. You'll see that, however, in the driving scene. I'll leave that screen up. For some reason, it's just not wanting to work. This system here works pretty well, although again, it's a little bit slow. It's the older system. I like some of the materials that Lincoln put here with this interesting textured look to the aluminum. I love the way these buttons and knobs look. You can see there's heated and cooled seats. And if you want to adjust the massage seat, there's a button here that you push. When you do that, you can see it brings up the massage, which it offers like 6 different levels of massage and 3 different settings for low, medium, or high. The front passenger seat is also a massage, which is nice because something like the Genesis GV80 only gives you a driver's side massaging seat. Big center console area here with a little bit more storage, 2 cup holders. There's a area here where you can put your phone. Nice sturdy lids, of course, to close these when you don't want people to see stuff in there. Pretty deep center console. Your wireless phone charging pad is in here, which again, that's pretty big if I can put all my camera equipment in there. Nice padded area over here. When you open up the glove compartment, you can see it's a bin style. It's damped and lined with felt. And then above, or right in front of me, there's a pretty big heads-up display, which is nice. But Lincoln doesn't offer the rear view camera mirror here, which would be good. You also have sunglass holders here and LED lighting, which is what you expect. So overall, the cabin, subtle differences between a gas-only version. Still feels very luxurious and quiet, but a couple of squeaks and rattles here, which I didn't really like, specifically the window. But overall, still a really nice place to spend time, but expect Lincoln to give us a bigger screen whenever they refresh this car. So let's go ahead and hop into the second and third row, because even though this is the plug-in hybrid model, you'll be surprised to see that the battery pack doesn't actually intrude on the passenger space, and this is pretty much just as roomy as the gas-only version. Now you can see my tester with this flight interior color with the tan leather or the caramel leather with the flight blue definitely looks impressive. The 2 captain's chairs are included on this black label version. You can see this one here, because of the captain's chairs, seats a maximum of 6. The leather is also very supple and comfortable. You have beautiful materials here on the door panel with this stitching leather on this part of the door handle or door panel. You can see the metal speaker covers for the THX sound system looks good. You also have these manual sunshades, which is great. Lincoln says you get around 39 inches of legroom back here, which is pretty good. Although getting back here at 5'7", I do feel like it could be a little more spacious. These seat backs definitely eat into the space, although it's nice and padded here, and you have these two map pockets as well. Now the door, of course, is soft closed in the back, just like it is for the front, so you don't even have to slam the door. And you can see here, looking at the space, the floor here isn't completely flat, which doesn't matter anyways with this captain's chairs and this big center console. This mimics the front. You can see if you open this up, there's two USB ports in there. It's a pretty deep storage area. You can also open and close the shades back here for the pano sunroof, which again comes all the way back into the second row. Lets in a lot of light. You have cup holders here as well. You have two more USB ports down here, and you have a traditional power outlet. I also like the rear seat air vents here. You have this little screen here that controls all your different climate functions, your audio settings. You can actually control the audio from the front, and you can also adjust the settings of the screen. If you go to seat controls here, you can see these seats are heated and ventilated, which is definitely nice. Included with this Black Label version. I believe these are optional on the reserve trim, but at this price point, I kind of expected that. Sadly, no massaging seats in the second row. That's probably expecting a little too much, but this second row is definitely just as fancy, if not nicer, versus the front seats. So again, it offers plenty of space. These seats also slide forward and back to give third row passengers more room, which is good because the third row definitely doesn't have quite as much space. Now let me show you guys what it's like to get into the third row. Essentially, you get out, because of the center console, I can't get in through the center there, but Lincoln makes it pretty easy. You just push this button right here. You can see the seat slides forward hydraulically to reveal a decent amount of room. So let me get back here to show you guys the space. Now you can see, once I fold these headrests up, ooh, definitely getting too old for this. Sliding over here to the back, ooh, this is with the seat all the way back here, which surprisingly, there's not much legroom, so I would have to ask this passenger here to slide their seat forward, which would eat into the legroom, the 39 inches that you get here. Lincoln says the third row has roughly 29 inches of legroom, which is pretty tight. Materials back here are hard touch plastic, but you do have these rear seat vents at least. I expected slightly better materials. You can see there's a pretty big gap right there. I expected it to be a little nicer, especially at this price point. You do have LED lighting back here, which is great, and no USB charging ports in the third row here. Some competitors offer that, like the Hyundai Palisade, which isn't even a competitor. It's technically one class below. But overall, the third row is on the tight side, so if you do plan on regularly putting adults back here, the Aviator may not be the best bet. All right, so now we are behind the wheel of the Ultimate Aviator. At least that's what Lincoln likes to call it, because this is the plug-in hybrid model, which has almost 100 more horsepower and over 630 pound-feet of torque. That is a lot of power, folks, for a vehicle like this, even though this thing weighs around 700 to 800 pounds more than the gas-only version, which I've driven many times. This is my first time behind the wheel of the plug-in hybrid model. And the first thing I'm noticing right off the bat, it's got two additional drive modes. There is a Preserve EV and a Pure EV mode. I'm starting off the car, of course, with a full charge. The most that showed was 18 miles on a full charge. That is not the 21 that the EPA said it was going to be. And when you have it in the Pure EV mode with a full charge, the Aviator will run on electric power alone. So if I, cruise around town in this thing, I noticed that, it kind of just, it toodles along in full EV mode, which is kind of fun. It definitely shows you a bunch of messages in the system where it says engine enabled for system performance. So it doesn't always completely allow you to be pure EV at times. There will be moments where I notice that it'll kind of allow the engine to come back on. I also noticed when I put my foot down, the engine turns on automatically, even though when I've got it on a full charge. That's disappointing because I wanted this car to stay in pure EV mode even when my foot goes to the floor. So it won't do that unless you're light with the throttle, which is kind of disappointing. There are some competitors that will allow you to drive on pure electric alone without any assistance from the gas engine. So we have it back into Excite, and I'm noticing right off the bat, whoa, this thing has a lot of torque. You feel that 630 pound-feet. That's a lot of significant amount of torque. And I also notice it's a little jerky. We'll talk about that later on in the driving scene. But right now I want to try to get a 0 to 60 in this car because Lincoln says 5 seconds, mid-fives. So let's see if that's really the case here. All right, I got 0 to 60 in 5.74 seconds. 5.74 is respectable. I expected it to be a little quicker. I actually didn't get a chance to test the regular Aviator because I didn't have my race box 0 to 60 timing equipment, but anytime your foot goes to the floor, you just feel all this torque. I mean, when you have the gas engine with the electric motor, it's a lot of power, and this 10-speed automatic has been tweaked slightly to, of course, compensate for the additional power that you get with this powertrain. It's responsive. I like it when it's in gas-only mode. This thing definitely feels fast, and you don't necessarily feel the weight, the extra weight of this car. I mean, this is still a big vehicle. It's not quite as big as the Navigator, but let's actually put the vehicle back into, let's get it out of Excite here. I want to go into the pure EV mode because I still am showing 16 miles of electric-only driving. So let's go ahead and see what this vehicle is just like when you're just kind of cruising along. Now, the gas engine, as you can see, is completely shut off again. It's in electric driving. If I put my foot down here and accelerate, it's a very mild assist. The electric motor only has like 101 horsepower. That's not a lot of power for something like this, which is why the gas engine has to come on to assist this vehicle. Now, the regen braking is okay as well. The brakes feel a little grabby, and you can tell that they are regenerative brakes. It also has this little eco coach where it tells you how much energy it managed to recapture. That's definitely a Ford thing. And then you can see here on this little display, it'll show you exactly where the power is going, which makes it a little bit more interesting to drive. This car in general definitely has a much more techie feel versus the last Aviator that I drove with this plug-in hybrid powertrain. This is essentially where Lincoln wants you to buy this car. Is if you're going to be driving this car mostly around town, you can essentially go 20 miles on all electric. It feels a little jerky there. It's strange, but still only electric. It's very sluggish here. I'm slowly applying power. You can almost feel the transmission shift, actually. I do feel the transmission shift, which is weird, but it's still accelerating in electric only mode. Now that's with the throttle at around a little over half throttle. It's not completely full throttle because I know the gas engine will come on. I also wish this car offered some engine braking. It doesn't have much in terms of one pedal driving. That's what I wish Lincoln would offer. But as I put my foot down here, you can literally feel that 10-speed shift, and that's what's odd. In electric-only mode, you can feel it shift, and that makes it feel less smooth. It makes it feel like the transition isn't very good, and that's something that I think might put off a few buyers. If you've never driven a full EV or a hybrid that's a little bit more seamless, this definitely feels funny with the shifts. Really odd. I was going to test out the 0 to 60 in pure EV mode only, but as you guys saw, it will not accelerate at full throttle in EV only. And let me actually demonstrate. I'll put my foot down to the floor right now, and it turns on the gas engine pretty immediately. But once it does, you get that full almost 500 horsepower, and it definitely feels fast. It even tells you there when the engine comes on. Right now, the engine has shut back off, so we are back into pure EV mode. So really, if you do more than 3/4 throttle, the gas engine will come on. So you have to keep that in mind when you're trying to drive this thing in pure EV only. You need to be conservative with your right foot. Anytime you ask for more than half throttle, it's going to turn on the gas engine to give you that performance that people are going to want, of course, in this type of vehicle. And it's just odd to drive it in EV mode with a transmission that shifts. The last car that I drove that felt like this was a BMW X3 plug-in hybrid. That also had the weird shifting when it was in pure electric only, and it also didn't allow me to drive completely on electric only, even though it had a full charge, which was disappointing. So we'll go back into Excite mode, which is the sport mode. This car definitely feels the most conventional in this mode. The steering also is relatively light, precise, numb and devoid of feel. My Tesla has the Air Glide suspension with the dynamic handling package for $2,400. The ride quality could be better in the Aviator. I've noticed over the years, the Aviator's ride, the last 2 years that I've driven it, it's comfortable, but with the big 21-inch wheels, it's not quite as comfortable as some of the competition. Specifically like the Mercedes competition, the BMW competition, in the Volvo competition. And even the new Genesis GV80 rides a little bit better than this car, even though that car has a conventional steel spring suspension. I definitely notice that when I'm driving this car. But other than that, it's still a very nice driving car. Definitely best driven if you are looking for a conventional drive. You're going to want to put it in Excite mode because this is the mode that makes it feel like a conventional car. But let's go ahead and try another 0 to 60 acceleration in this thing because I want to test out what it feels or if I can do a little bit better than 5.7, we'll just floor it. We won't brake torque it this time. Ooh, that feels fast. There we go. I got 5.42 seconds there. That feels much better. When you brake torque it, it kind of just, it confuses the two motors and the computer can't handle it. So just floor it from a stop. You feel all that torque. That's definitely fast, but it's not as fast as the super plug-in hybrid SUV that Lincoln was trying to make you think this thing accelerated. It doesn't feel like a super sport SUV like an AMG, you know, GLE 63 or an X7, even with the V8 X7. This isn't going to compete well with V8 powered luxury rivals. But what this does feel faster than is the last Volvo XC90 T8 Recharge that I drove. This definitely feels like it has a lot more torque, as it does. I also like this V6. It sounds a lot better than the 4-cylinder turbo supercharged motor in the Volvo. So as a plug-in hybrid vehicle, this goes about the same in terms of range. In terms of fuel economy, I've been averaging around 18 miles to the gallon in my week's worth of testing, which isn't wonderful. But remember, this is a nearly 6,000 pound fat boy that you feel the weight in the curves, in the corners and whatnot. And I think that its electric only range should be better. I mean, yes, we have a smallish 13.6 kilowatt hour battery pack, but I think if Lincoln doubled the size of the battery pack, that would be nice if we can get like 40 to 50 miles of range. I'd like to see something like that. The regen braking in this car really takes a second to get used to. It definitely isn't as smooth as I'd like it to be. The torque. I like the torque feel in this car. It feels fast. Nice. Just because we can, let's try it one more time. And that was my best run. I got 4.9 seconds there, which is fast. Impressive. I'm glad to see a sub 5 second 0 to 60 acceleration time, because this thing definitely feels fast. The problem is it just doesn't feel as smooth and luxury oriented that I would like it to. The transitions between the conventional 10-speed auto and the electric motor, and the fact when you drive an electric motor, electric only mode, it has a tendency to give you these weird feelings of shifting gears. And you hear the tires squealing there a little bit. You can see it is so sluggish when it's in EV mode, but you can do it. You can coast along in electric only mode as long as you don't have your foot too far down. This is again at half throttle right now, and I'm getting up to speed. It takes a second, but the shifting is just odd. The range calculator keeps going up between, it started at 18, it keeps going down to 15, and then it went up to 20 at some point when I was on the regen braking. Right now it keeps going up. So the computer seems like it's trying to figure out exactly what the range is going to be based on my driving. The rest of this car, though, is pure Aviator. The interior is nice. The seats took me a second to get comfortable with them because there's so many different ways you can adjust them, but they're 30 ways, but they are massaging, they're heated and cooled. The interior still feels nice, although the screen here is starting to look a little small. This is the 10-inch display that you get in the Lincolns, whereas, again, Lincoln has a bigger 13.2-inch display in the Nautilus and the new Navigator. This does not have it yet. But unlike the Navigator, which feels massive, this definitely feels like a just right sized, on the bigger end, family type of vehicle. And I really like this color combination with the Flight interior, the Flight blue exterior. It's just, this car is a lot of money, and I'm not entirely sure it's refined enough to be worth this much money. I mean, yes, you do qualify for the federal tax credit of about $6,500 with this car, which is nice, which will bring the price to about the same as the gas-only Aviator. So as long as you have a need to drive in pure electric mode and you do it less than 20 miles a day on your commute, and you're okay with the odd, slightly rough transitions between electric and gas, this might be worth a look. But for those of you who prefer a more conventional drive, I might prefer just the standard Aviator, which is odd to me, but I kind of also feel the same way about the XC90 T8. So after spending a week with the Aviator Grand Touring, this vehicle is really one of the most impressive mid-size 3-row luxury crossovers that money can buy, yet alone something that comes from an American brand. I really fell in love with the gas model. In fact, the gas version plus the Genesis GV80. Those are two of my favorites. The new Acura MDX also is a great option. It's a less expensive option. But surprisingly, after spending a week with the plug-in hybrid version, I'm torn with this model because I really want to like the plug-in hybrid. Obviously, it's a little quicker. It gives you that 20-ish miles of all-electric range, which is fine for those of you who have short commutes. But where I have a problem with this car is the refinement aspect. As you guys saw during the driving scene, the transmission is a little jerky. It constantly gives you a rough transition between the electric and the gas engine. And then when you're in pure electric mode, the gas engine will come on anytime you ask for more than 3/4 throttle, and you can also feel the shifts from the 10-speed auto, which is a super weird sensation. It might put off a few people who are considering this car, especially when you also look at the price. The ride quality still also could be a little bit better. And my particular example here had a couple of squeaks and rattles, especially from the seats, from the sunroof. So that's kind of my, small quibbles that I have with the car. It's still a great option, but personally, the plug-in hybrid needs a little bit more refinement. Unless you really want to get that tax credit and you want the pure electric range, I might just recommend the gas version, or of course, be sure to consider the Genesis GV80, and of course, there's the Volvo XC90, which is still a very solid choice. Now, speaking of which, let's talk about the pricing of the plug-in hybrid version, because the base Aviator starts at around $51,000, which is on the expensive end. This is certainly not a cheap luxury SUV. The plug-in hybrid version, you can only get it in Grand Touring, and it starts at the base reserve trim. That starts at about $68,000. It's around 12 grand more than a base gas-only reserve trim of the same vehicle. So there's a pretty hefty upcharge to go for the plug-in hybrid. This Black Label version, there are essentially very little to no options to add. They start at around $87,000 for the Black Label model, which is a lot of money, almost 90 grand. It's about 10 grand more than the gas-only equivalent version. Now, of course, when you add in all the options on the gas version that comes standard on the Grand Touring Black Label, which there are a couple of options that this comes standard with, which is optional on the gas-only version, you're really looking at about a $5,000 price difference. This one here is about 89 grand with the color options, with the exterior color options and a couple of small options here and there. That is before you factor in a $6,500 tax credit. It's about $6,534, which isn't the full $7,500 because the battery pack isn't quite big enough to give you the full credit. But with that tax credit, it roughly brings the price of this car back down to the gas model, which at that point starts to make more sense. As long as you guys have enough tax liability to qualify for it, you might want to consider the plug-in hybrid, because essentially you get better MPG, the electric only, and that additional power, and you theoretically don't have to pay any more for it before you factor in the federal and state tax incentives, which should, again, bring the price down considerably. But with all that said, I do believe that the Aviator is still my favorite. I'm just not entirely sure I'm sold on the plug-in hybrid version until Lincoln smooths out the gas and only electric transition and the regenerative braking. I'd probably say just go for the gas only model, unless you really want to take advantage, of course, of the EV only range and the tax credit. With all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview here on the 2022 Lincoln Aviator Grand Touring Black Label. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.